So I delayed being promoted for years, and I was quite good at it. Just putting yourself in different positions and not being promoted, which was great because nobody in special forces wants to be promoted. If they do, there's something wrong with them because the higher and the quicker you go up, there's only one way. You can't come back down. So while the trips are on and while there's plenty of kinetic stuff overseas and you're doing cool stuff, there's no incentive to get promoted. What, for an extra 2,000 a year, maybe, to get rank. So there's no pay incentive and you're going to do more paperwork and computer work. So you'll find, and whether a lot of the other guests have spoken about this, there's no incentive to be promoted quickly. So they were finally going to get me in 2013 and 2014. So I saw the writing on the wall, and I had a couple of friends that were in the UAE running some subcontract work for the UAE government where we were training their special forces in Abu Dhabi. So I hooked up one of those jobs.
I'm surprised that you're allowed to go and train another country's special forces.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And that was highlighted a couple of years ago now, where I think the media reached out to government and they're like, hey, you guys are training, the UAE, for instance, they're training UAE soldiers. So they put the whole, mercenary spin on it that we're over there just training them to be rogue and do crazy stuff overseas. It wasn't the case. It was stuff that we were doing in the army anyway. I was in the tactical assault group in the TAG over there in 2013 training their guys. So fast forward a year and a half and I'm doing it as a civilian, but the same job as I did a year and a half before in the army. So it was sanctioned by the government, but for whatever reason that particular year they're like, what are we doing training the UAE guys, war fighting, when one day they could be on the other side,
Yes, I think that there was a pilot a little while ago that was done, but he was training Chinese pilots, so I think it might be a little different. Yeah,
I've heard about that. This guy, yeah,
it was in the media. I don't know his name or whatever. People can go Google it. In terms of the transition, how hard has it been? So you were let me take a step back. How long were you in the UAE doing that for?
4.5 years.
So you're still around sort of the military culture over there.
Yes, yeah, you are. Yep.
So, but tax free, good incentive in itself.
Tax free. Yeah, and it's like a 4-hour day, 5-hour day. You're home by like 1 o'clock.
Oh wow!
Over there,
okay.
yeah, because it's so hot, and because maybe their work etiquette is not like it is in Australia, so everyone's keen to head home just after lunch.
So how has it been then coming back to Australia, and I'm assuming no longer sort of in that military culture? How hard's that transition been?
That's been really hard. I'll be honest with you. I didn't think it would be that hard. Like when I left the army, I was kind of cooked anyway. Like I was glad to leave the army. Like I'd ticked every box I wanted to tick as a junior, senior team commander. I'd been in plenty of kinetic gunfights. I'd ticked a lot of boxes that I wanted to tick. So I was happy to leave and go to the UAE. But to be honest, after 4.5 years over there of pistol, roping, driving, explosive entry, I'd had enough of that as well. Tactically, I just couldn't be bothered seeing another pistol or set of body armor or night vision goggles. So I was happy to come home after those 4.5 years. And it wasn't easy coming back either, right? So you're trying to fit into a mold back here of what society wants. And it's like, you just got a regular job or whatever you're going to do and just wind it back from going flat out to, kicking along in first gear. And that's quite difficult to do for motivated. I put myself in that alpha box of a guy that enjoyed it and loved it when I was doing it, but now I kind of miss it. And it's not easy to wind it back and do everyday life stuff. There's one part of your brain that's like, oh yeah, it's awesome. I can sit on the couch and I can watch a movie and go to the gym a couple of times a day and do this and walk the dog.
Have coffees that are too hot.
the coffees and whine about cold coffees. But there's the other part of your brain that's like, hey, fuck that. When are we doing some cool stuff? So you kind of want it, but you don't. So it's a weird dynamic in your head. Um, yeah, so that's been quite the transition and quite the challenge is to find out where you fit in society these days.
Do you feel that, because I have an opinion on it, but do you feel as an ex military personnel that Australians appreciate the service?
Um, in general, yes. Yeah. Um, I've probably only heard it a handful of times, to be honest. Like America's, they live off that, and it's
Mm,
part of their culture is to thank people for their service. And it's cliche, and sometimes it sounds corny, but it's actually good to hear sometimes. Thanks for what you did, and what you did for Australia's interests, and you know whatever your motivation to get over there. Thanks for doing it.
mm,
Um, so I think in general, yes, Australia does appreciate what we did,
that's good.
and that's good to hear occasionally. It is.
Yeah.
Um,
Because from an outsider's point of view, I don't know if it's because you guys don't talk about it as much. Like obviously America's very rah 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 um USA. So I don't know whether or not it's because you guys don't talk about it as much. So therefore it's probably not out there in the media as much. But I I personally don't think that you guys are as appreciated as much as you should be.
yeah, and thanks for saying that. Yeah, I know it is weird. It's quite the conundrum. It's like you kind of want to be, in a sense, recognized, but on the same token, you'll find special forces guys around the world kind of shy away from that as well. So you kind of want it, but it's embarrassing and you shy away from it when it happens. So I don't know where it sits. It is good to hear it, whether it's a collective people, saying thanks very much for your service, or it's even a one-on-one. Um, and for instance, like the Taliban were a bunch of bad guys doing some
Mm,
hideous stuff that I won't put you through, or tell you the stories, but they were murdering, women, kids, men, boys, girls, and doing everything in between to them, before we got there. And I'm sure they're doing it now. The people that don't support or do support the government and don't support the Taliban, like they're gone in a couple of seconds in a particular village when the Taliban gets there. So all the locals and the villagers who supported the government were like happy, really genuinely happy that we were there and we were taking down the Taliban. So that's good to hear, and it's good to see that we had a net effect at the end of the day. Um, yeah, because they had no mercy for the local Afghani people if they supported any government other than the Taliban.